let us offend some people now. Favorite guests. We're going to forget somebody. Someone's going to get hurt. But favorite guests.
Favorite guest? Oh, I'm not going to pick a favorite
Hold on.
guest.
We can open this one and say we valued all of our guests equally. But how about some of the ones you found more interesting, or some conversations that came to mind that you really enjoyed?
For me, the one. Okay, I'm gonna classify it like this. The one where there were two where I personally learnt the most. Because there's a whole, we've got all the guests were incredibly well educated and knew about planning, but a lot was like sharing experience and kind of challenging that. The two where I was like, I genuinely haven't had too much exposure to this. One was when we were talking about
Welcome to the Beyond Deadlines podcast, where we tackle challenges that planning and schedule leaders come across on a day-to-day basis. My name is Micah Piippo, and I'm a planning and scheduling manager for Intel.
My name's Greg Lawton. I'm the CEO of an AI schedule management company called Nodes and Links.
Each episode is designed to give you tactics that you can use on a day-to-day basis right away. Today's episode is a celebration. We've hit 1 year of Beyond Deadlines. First off, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for just listening in each week to our podcast. It has been so brilliant to see this thing take off over the last year. Greg and I have so much fun recording these each week. And thank you for all of our past guests who have joined. Greg, anything you want to kick off with? Do you have a bottle of champagne or anything that you want to pop?
I have a bottle of water because it's 30 degrees where I am. So no.
Yeah.
What I think is really interesting is the kind of responses we get and the stats. We're scheduling and project controls people, and we see the stats. I think you sent me something where we'd passed 500,000 listens and reads and impressions of like the newsletter and things like that. And if you think like that, 500,000 is actually quite a lot. Like in the age of social media now, you kind of think, oh well, that's just normal. But if you think about it, let's say, the average person, or let's say that the really, people engage with 10 things. That's still 50,000 people that we've actually managed to maybe have some kind of impact on. I think that's quite a cool thing.
It's very cool. It's very cool to see that it's just that this content appears, that people like it or need it. This episode, we are going to run through a couple questions just to celebrate the 1 year anniversary. We are also part of a mini celebration. Greg and I have been talking about a live episode and getting some audience Q&A, so I think there'll be more to come. This will be like a strung out Bridezilla thing, where it's like we're going to do multiple parties across the entire year. So prepare
We're
yourself.
Going to celebrate for the next 6 months.
We've existed for a year. All right, so let's just dive right into the questions before we babble on about anything else. So, number one, what has been the most significant lesson you've learned in construction planning and scheduling over the last year?
Over the last year, what we?
I mean, we can do some plus and minus here. It doesn't have to be the exact date. Let me open my journal to.
Well, I'm actually thinking the most significant lesson I've learned in planning and scheduling, the most significant lesson I've learned is how opaque the career progression and actually the science and analytics that you and I have been lucky enough to be exposed to is. Accessibility of just incredibly good guidance information. I'm not talking here about some dashboard on a project. I'm talking genuine what is the thing I should be looking at in this program? What is the thing I should be doing to progress in the next step of my planning career? Like all of that, it's just so difficult to do unless you've got a friend who's done it, or you've got a manager or a mentor that's giving you the secret keys. Like both you and I were lucky enough to get given those secret keys very early on, which to my mind made it seem just, oh yeah, that's exactly how it should work. And then what I've realized is no, that's not how it works. A lot of people graph for very many years for very little, reward in the same. Anyway, that's my idea, which is how unfortunately opaque career progression and actual really quality educational content is.
I completely agree. I was going to go with how no matter what we talk about, the tools, the processes, all these other things, everything always comes back and dials into the people. And whether you're working on a challenging project or you're trying to advance in your career, those chess pieces always involve people. And that's the biggest lesson I think I continue to remind myself year over year. In any sort of angle, you're dealing with people. And then that's where it always just goes back into psychology and biases and blah, blah, blah. But that was the biggest probably, lesson that I've took. And I just take it almost literally every single year. It hits me back in the face. Oh, you're having a challenging contract issue. It's not really a challenging contract issue. It's a challenging people issue. Oh, you're trying to implement a technology software. Oh, it's a technology issue. Nope. It's a people issue. Oh, you're trying to shoot a podcast and have it be, people listen to it. Well, you better go grab the fanciest mic. No, you better make content that people are interested in. Oh, you're trying to teach people about scheduling. Well, that's got to be, oh, you better go create like some fancy presentation. No, you better think about how people take in and digest that information. So that'd be mine for the year. All right, next question. Let's see. From past projects that we've discussed, most of them, nearly all of them being hypothetical, can you share one that was your favorite?
Of all the episodes that we've done, well, I'll give two answers. One which is genuinely a favorite thing, and the second is that's real life, and the second that's imaginary. So a real life one that is my favorite is data centers. Data centers are my favorite. Data centers and or nuclear reactor refits.
Why?
And I say that because both of them are what I'd call hot projects, where the cost of delay or the benefit of acceleration overweigh everything else. So it's almost if you can save 8 minutes, so long as it doesn't cost more than 12 million, go for it. Like it's like the blankest canvas to be as analytical and ambitious as possible. That's real life. My most favorite fake one is when you were presenting the different graphs and risk curves to me, and I basically fired you on the spot.
And then I reminded you about our contract.
The reason why it's a favorite is because I found myself actually getting really, really wound up in like I was like. I almost completely forgot we were doing a podcast. Yeah, I was like, it was just in my head. If someone genuinely came and presented that to me, I'd be like, you like, I've got to keep my cool here. I'm in a professional environment. Why are you showing me this shit?
Yeah, that was a great one. And those initial graphs were bad. For people who haven't listened to that episode, we did 3 different sets of graphs, 1 being terrible, 2 being mediocre, and 3 being passable. And we talked about each one, and I could see Greg's face getting redder and redder on the first graph where I just put a line. I just put a line on the paper. Where's the x-axis, y-axis baseline? Where's anything useful here? And then that was a tough one.
Have you been to school? Not even like university, just school. Have you been to school?
Yeah, that was a tough one for me as well, to speak to it and not stay in the character of I create bad graphs. It was really hard for me as well, because I constantly wanted to be like, explain how this could be better and how this could change.
Didn't you have like in that episode, didn't you have a code name? Like you weren't Micah, I can't remember.
Bonus points for anybody who looks that up and puts it in the comment on the LinkedIn page for the article. If you do that, I will reward you with something. I don't know what it is yet, but if you can go find that Easter egg and post it, I'll reward you with something. My favorite project would be, I don't remember who was in the situation, but when we talked about Olympics, we talked about Olympic projects one time.
Oh, yeah.
And the Olympics are coming up, but I just feel that those are a little bit opposite of data centers or potential. Well, I mean, they have big finalities. But data centers to me is this massive program repeatability effort. Keep tweaking, keep getting better. And the data centers you'll create in the future, because you're creating these things forever, will get better and better. Where Olympics, it just kind of comes to a head and then you're done. And it's just these massive endeavors with stadiums everywhere and infrastructure, and they're huge challenges. And I liked walking through that because I don't get to experience too much. Most of my brain is spent constantly in that program mode. And it was one of those ones where it's just this one go that was really cool to explore the hypothetical nature of it.
You're right, actually. And the Paris Olympics are actually really soon. I should probably get some tickets. Just reminded me.
Yeah, I mean, if you've, I won't be going, but I'll be watching at home on TV.
You can't, but I live just a train journey away, so I might as well.
Well, record it and send us photos and pictures of your great adventure. I've been watching quite a bit of the trials. They're actually for track. The trials happen in Eugene, which is just like an hour or two away from me. One of these years, I got to go down and watch them because that level of performance is brilliant. Definitely not. We don't meet that level here on the podcast. All right. So here's another one. Thinking about the year of podcast, what has been your biggest challenge with the podcast? What's the hardest thing that you have faced with the podcast?
The hardest thing is just making sure that episodes go out every single week, 2 weeks, no matter what. Like you and I said a year ago, we're just going to commit to this for a year and just see what happens. I got born out of just loving the subject and loving the jobs we do. And we just wanted to make great content. And if one person listened to it, cool. But I'm sure everyone listening here, this isn't our jobs. We do this for fun on a Sunday. My wife and daughter are currently having their afternoon nap. My daughter's having an afternoon nap. My wife's taking advantage.
I could be making pancakes.
Exactly. And it's, life gets in the way, and it's just keeping to that promise. Everything else is generally fine, isn't it? Like we never struggle to find anything to talk about. Like if you're generally passionate and interested in something, there's always something to talk about. It's just the repetitiveness of dropping good episodes.
That one is solid. That one, it's just maintaining the ongoing. Let's keep creating. Let's keep talking. I'm a bit competitive, so to me, it's probably patience. I have this drive to keep making the episodes better, making the show better, figuring out ways to create better content. But again, it's not our job. So I think that would be the biggest challenge for me, is finding that balance where, good enough is good enough. And I remember a couple of the first episodes, I sat there and I tried to edit them just to be absolutely perfect. And it's just not needed. Like, it's just, you guys are going to come in and listen to us, whether I got food in my teeth or the audio is a little off, people will come and listen if it's decent and good content. I think that's the one for me. That was the challenge of just, and I think that actually expands out to anywhere you look in your career. At a certain point, it's better to ship stuff. And what I mean by that is to finish the schedule update, finish the schedule report, finish your resume, whatever. Ship stuff. If you want to become a creator online, get stuff out there. That is a bigger thing to me than making things perfect, because you'll get feedback, and most often or not, things aren't one shot goes. You don't just have one episode, you have 50 of them. So if one's not perfect, none of them are really perfect, but good enough is good enough.
It's funny you say that, and I completely agree. I actually now, generally, unless it's really, really important, like if I have to make a presentation for something, it's just blank white slide, no more than about 10 words, and maybe a picture. And it's the kind of presentation where when you've got a really good presentation in your head, you just get it out in 15 minutes. Like, I've actually found that I get much better feedback and people enjoy them by doing that than spending 3 days tweaking the colors and making them consistent and doing all of this. I'm like,
only three. I will spend. That box has to be perfect. You when you're doing that, you're more passionate. You're talking through what you care about, and you're not focused on. I think you're probably in flow state is what's happening.
Yeah, it's in flow.
You've gone into flow, versus I am robot, I will hit talking points.
And to be honest, like the flow state, and to your first point, it's about the people. Really, that's what it is. It's like what can I say in the shortest amount of words in the most natural way possible that a bunch of people are actually going to genuinely get value from? Are people genuinely going to get value from the fact that I have the right blue in the bottom right corner? Meh, like if it's a document that no one's going to associate me with, but if it's a presentation, you tell a story, you make it
what's your hook? How are you bringing people in? Exactly. It's not going to be, every once in a while you can do it with a picture, but more often than not, it's not going to be a picture. It's how you're going to like capture the audience quickly. And even if it's just a standard project update presentation, if you apply those skills and you get good at them, people recognize it, then it'll open the door for other opportunities. All right, let us offend some people now. Favorite guests. We're going to forget somebody. Someone's going to get hurt, but favorite guests.
Favorite guest? Oh, I'm not going to pick a favorite
hold on.
guest.
We can open this one and say we valued all of our guests equally. Okay. But how about some of the ones you found more interesting, or some conversations that came to mind that you really enjoyed?
For me, the one. Okay, I'm gonna classify it like this. The one where there were two where I personally learnt the most, because like there's a whole. We've got all the guests were incredibly well educated and knew about planning, but a lot was like sharing experience and kind of challenging that. The two where I was like, I genuinely haven't had too much exposure to this. One was when we were talking about prompt engineering in full project controls delivery that's ongoing at Google. That was one. And the second
Matt Krask.
Matt.
The and episode, I'll link it in the show notes, but anyways, keep going.
And the second is when we were actually discussing the contents of university lecture courses on project management and project delivery with our dear friend, and you'll remind me, and I'm terrible with names.
Wait, was it Ian?
It was that Ian Hepperstall.
Yeah, yes. Ian's. Yeah.
It was Ian. I was thinking about that conversation for about 3 days afterwards, and he sent me a lovely email following up with some of the content that he actually lectures on, and I genuinely that was pure enjoyment.
That is one of my biggest passion topics that I talk to people about planning and scheduling quite a bit, and they often ask different sorts of questions. But one of them is, why is this needed? What skill sets are we missing? Why can't we find? And I don't think people realize there is, and this is going to be beating a horse dead for the audience, there's no degree for construction planning and scheduling. You can get a generalist certification on how to use some software. You can get a general certification on the processes of just the general, like lightest processes of it. But there is no college education. And then there's going to be someone who's like, well, Micah, you can get a construction degree. I'm like, great. I went through them. A couple months ago, I went through 30 to 40 college courses in America, looking at, they list out their college courses. I went through top tier schools, all the way through just some mid-range ones, and they offer one course, and typically project controls. A course is, 3 months long, maybe 4 months long, and you're going to cover cost and schedule and risk in that. How much are you really going to get out of that? And that was one where I really appreciate those two guests, but that is definitely a passion topic of mine. That it's just I don't know. Maybe I need to start my own school or college, but yeah, I don't think that's in the books.
To be honest, at some point, you and I probably do need to actually just bite the bullet and just become university lecturers and actually do a full degree on elements of project management, like project scheduling and things like this.
Yeah, it's more than just the education of people. When you have a degreed program, it's also the research that happens behind the scenes in the degree program. If you have a biologist, there's someone out on a boat somewhere studying this sort of algae and advancing that field. If you don't have a degreed program, you don't really have a ton of people. There are people writing wonderful papers and doing wonderful research, but it's just not as concentrated and powerful as it should be. Favorite guests for me, Ooh, this is a tough one. I really like the Matt episode. I really like the Ian episode. You took two that were on the tip of my tongue. Ooh, I like the one we did with Trek on careers and Project
Mm-hmm.
Control's careers. That was a really cool episode. Just showed people, I think, how hot of a career it was. And we talked a lot about different ways that you can advance your careers and get in and get different jobs. So I'd say that one was a really interesting conversation to me because of just the different little tidbits he had up his sleeve.
What I found interesting in that one was after we finished the podcast off, you and I asked him genuinely how many Project Controls roles he had placed in the last 6 months. And you and I were gobsmacked. How can one man move so many people? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's retired in the next 6 months. It is a hot career, and people are paying some mega bucks for it. That was eye opening. I was like, I knew. You and I know we can see, in our organization, we can see the wages that the organization is paying. We can see the people who are moving. We can see the job adverts, but for someone behind the scenes who's actually like, no, these are the real numbers.
Yeah. Listen to Beyond Deadlines, folks. Step your skills up and go make some more money. Well, this is a year anniversary, so I feel like we should be true to our plan and keep it in the 20-minute mark. So we're hitting on the 20-minute mark. But I would like to get, what are your thoughts on future of the podcast in the next year? What do you see for us ahead?
So we've got a lot in the bank now about some very, very specific topics and techniques. What I'd really like to do is to really step it up and make some formal content. Like you and I have been talking about this, about writing a book together, a proper book that is edited properly, because it's like, how do we step up the quality of the content that we make? Now, the podcast, I would imagine, is us, if we do that, us pulling elements of this book down and really discussing it. But I think you and I really, really need to commit to making something that's even the next step.
That's where I'd probably see as well is diving into a little bit more deeper into subjects. In 20 minutes, we're trying to cover the intro, high level, and then we're trying to get down into the weeds. But by the time you get down into the weeds, we're at the 18-minute mark. And maybe we got into the right weeds or the wrong weeds. I think it's almost like that presentation you brought up earlier. We had the 3 different slides of how you present, and this is like really, really bad. This is a little bit better. And this is the best. I think we could do more of that in different sorts of areas. Like the other week, we did a quick, I think, flyover of performance against duration and just that analysis, but really putting some better context around that and giving someone a better plan on how they could go implement that and use it. I think it'd be really cool if we were able to do that and spend some time.
Or give some real proper templates and content to everyone.
Yeah.
It takes you and I no effort to put them together.
Well, I would say no effort.
Time. It takes time. It's just not hard.
Speak for yourself, Greg.
Yeah, the other one would be potentially having guests do that. We have guests talk and come on, but if they had some more structured content on there. And I think just bringing on another collection of guests over the years. We brought on, I think, a good spackling, and I'd like to just still find I have a couple in the shoots that are going to come out. No, I'm not going to drop any spoilers, but we have some interesting guests coming up already. And I would like to keep finding just interesting people, maybe not always directly in planning and scheduling, but people that are around that or in different industries that aren't necessarily considered planning and scheduling. And so if audience members, if you have any recommendations on who you'd like to see on the show, feel free to drop me a DM with that. We'll go try and find that person.
That's a great idea, actually. Great idea.
Greg, if there's actually a final question, if there's one person alive or dead that you could have on the show, who would it be?
This is one of these, I'm going to say Jesus or
Do
something.
you want me to narrow it down for you?
Yeah, if you can narrow it down.
Okay, the person has to be alive.
Okay, right. Right. I'm not going to go down the route of dreaming and sounding really philosophical and this kind of thing. I'm going to say the CEO of one of the massive client organizations that is buying billions of dollars of projects, because ultimately Like, we talk about the tactics, etc. The people who pay all the bills, and it's almost, if we can expose the audience to the genuine opinions of all of the people paying the bills, I think that could be a valuable thing.
About 6 years ago, I walked by Sundar in a hallway at Google. So I'm pretty sure I could get him on the show. I mean, based on that.
Hey, man, what do you need?
I was like, whoa, wow, that's crazy. Yeah, so pretty much done. We don't need to worry about that anymore. 2024, 2025 goal checked off. That would be, I think, I'd just like to hear about how they think about in a more, because a lot of the interviews you get with CEOs are very PR structured, and you're not getting into kind of tactical weeds. I'd love to hear how they think about planning these massive organizations and how they go out and put all the pieces in place and think about how they're looking at capital allocation and things like that. I think that would be really, really cool. And maybe, strong maybe, if anybody has a hookup, let me know. I don't think my hallway encounter is gonna slide. I would go with, I'm going to break my rules, and I'm not even go alive or dead. I would go fictional, and I would have Iron Man on the show. We've made countless Marvel references, and I would love to have Tony Stark on the show and interview him about,
I would settle
scheduling.
for Robert Downey Jr. because I just think he's a legend. He is a genuinely nice man who, by the way, has a house in the west of London, very close to where one of my friends lives, and they've actually gone to garden parties with him and told me he's a genuinely cool person.
Boom, there you have it.
I'd settle for that.
The CEO of Google and Iron Man. We will have them on the show in the next 6 months. We have rubbed elbows with these people. Greg has rubbed elbows that have rubbed elbows, but we'll get it figured out. All right. Thank you for tuning in this week. And again, just the biggest thank you, the biggest heartfelt thank you for everyone who tunes in and has made this happen. We couldn't do this without you. Well, we probably still would if there's only one person listening, but it gives us so much more motivation and passion to continue to deliver this show every single week, giving you strategies and tactics for planning, terrible jokes, and interesting hypothetical scenarios to go and think about. If you could, please share this episode, subscribe, help us keep this going. We got another year headed for you with some amazing content. So from us at Beyond Deadlines, have a wonderful week and a wonderful year.